And my focus is really to address TLV Startup Hub, which means that you are people involved in startups, and I'm here to try to help you assess what is blockchain and how can it help you in what you're doing with your startup. Or will it help your competitors, in which case you need to know about it perhaps to move against it. Maybe blockchain is inefficient, so you'll work in a way that will act accordingly. I'm happy to take questions. I'll pause every now and then. And I want to begin with a story. True story. So we're zooming into Jerusalem, where I own an apartment, and we have a house committee, Vadbayit. Okay, this is a photograph of the apartment. The fellow who owns the top floor, he asked for permission from the city to add a room here and a room here. And then he built an entire floor which blocked the stairwell so we could not get on the roof. True story. Now, the building has 8 apartments. And the reason why he did that is because he owns 5 of them. So we went to the city and said, he cannot build this, we object. And we had a meeting in front of a city official. At that meeting, he said, I own 5 apartments. That's 62.5%. And we, who were against it, say we only own 3, we're 37. So he has a right to do it because if he has that percent, he can do what he wants. But I was there. And in the meeting, and it really did look like this, although there were a few more Haredim than you see in this picture. There was the city official who makes a decision, there was the city architect, there was the city planning expert. There were about 6 people from the city in the room, and we were there as well. And what I told them was, you've made a mistake. Actually, according to the plan, each apartment has a certain amount of units. And the bottom floor only gets 3 units. So in fact, he only has 18 units, he's 60%. And we, who are against it, have 40%. This caused a big commotion, and they came and looked at the books, and the fellow in charge was upset. And then he said, of course, this meeting is dismissed, the plan is dismissed, and now he has an order to take that down. I want to start with that story because it has all the critical elements that blockchain is bringing a revolution concerning them. So there's data. We had to know which apartment is which and what shares it had. There's math. We had to do some calculations. There were assets involved. We own the apartments, okay? There are owners. Now, in my story, we didn't actually transfer anything, but when he bought those apartments, he had other people transfer to him apartments. So there are transfers inherent in the story. There was a judge. There were rules brought to bear. And in the end, it was a decision recorded. I think that these are the key ways that you can decide whether you need blockchain in your startup to help with your business proposition. And I'm going to return to these over and over in this talk. And each one you can look at, it kind of has a flip side. So if you have the wrong data, which he had, or the wrong calculation, then you're in trouble. You could think you own something, but you don't. You could have false owners or transfers. It could be people working to falsify data. The judge could be corrupt. And of course, the decision could be recorded properly. So who am I to come before you and speak as if I know about this stuff? So my name is Lionel Wolberger, Dr. Lionel Wolberger. I'm co-founder of Platinum.io. I'll be coming back to that again. I have 2 plugs tonight. My startup Platinum, which I'll get to at the end, and I'm writing for a site which I'll mention soon. I was at Cisco Secure Video for 20 years. I deployed multi-million-dollar systems with millions of users. I'm a zero-knowledge expert. I've worked with people who invented it. I'm on the W3C, which is the World Wide Web, which makes the standards that make the whole web run. I personally worked with Tim Berners-Lee. And I am now an organizer of TLV Startup Hub. So hopefully I know something, and in fact, my challenge was what to say in 50 minutes of this subject that indeed I know a lot about and care about. So let's start with blockchain, all right? So, I own an asset, okay? I am the owner of an asset. I want to cause that you will own this asset, all right? So I transfer it to you. How do I do that? Well, I have to curate the data. I have to get the proof that I own it. I have to somehow establish how you're going to own it. I have to use some kind of protocol, a digital protocol, to do that. So, stepping back for a minute, Bitcoin was the first blockchain app. Bitcoin was what showed us the power of blockchain. So let's make this a Bitcoin story. So I have $1,000 in Bitcoin. I'm going to transfer it to you. In order to do that, I have to curate the data. I have to get my key, and get my wallet, and get access to the network. I'm going to use the protocol to do that. I'm going to announce to the network that I am now transferring this to him, okay? The network essentially proposes a block to include that, along with all kinds of other transfers that are happening. They are motivated to do this by an incentive, which, notice, I had nothing to do with that. They are self-motivated. They mine the block, and we'll get back to what that means. They do some work, some intense work. Mining, a month ago, was estimated to take as much electricity as Denmark. It was the entire nation of Denmark. So this is quite a bit of work. And then they attach it to the other blocks. And by doing that, again, they announce that back to the network, because they're motivated to do that. The network now knows, the data comes back, and you are now the owner. So that's the shortest way that I can find to tell you what is Bitcoin on the blockchain that covers all the main points. Now, blockchain is the elephant in the room, and there's an old story of the blind man who comes to the elephant. And he touches the side, and he says, oh, this elephant is as strong as a wall. Elephants are strong, and they're straight and tall like walls. But somebody else touches the trunk and says, oh, an elephant is like a rope. You know, it's stringy and long. And somebody else who's blindfolded touches the tusk and says, no, the elephants are very sharp, and they can hurt you. And then none of these people are agreeing in the story because they're blindfolded. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because we have these issues with blockchain and Bitcoin. And I just wanted to flag a few. The first is that why is it that we're not sure what's happening? Because it's brand new. It's like a baby. The mother's holding the baby and looking at her and thinking, this baby's going to grow up to be an astrophysicist and go to the school I went to. And the baby's sitting there thinking, I'm going to become a musician and sell ice cream. You don't know what a baby will become. And that's one of the reasons why there's so much hype and so much noise and confusion around blockchain, because it's very, very new. It's only 10 years old. When you look at other technologies when they were new, this is a graph from Andreessen Horowitz, a take-up of consumer technologies. It took 100 years for the telephone to go from 0 to 100% of households. Because when the telephone was new, they weren't sure what it was going to do. And when you look back here, they were wondering if they would sell 10 to a city. They really didn't know, because it was too new. But later, when the smartphone came along, and it was an understandable thing, it was phone, we understood, that only took 5 years to reach this kind of penetration. The second reason why blockchain gets a lot of hype and can be confusing is that it is a technology that needs a great illustration. This is a car 100 years ago. It's a joke. It's useless. It stutters, it smokes, it cannot beat the horse. Now you can imagine all the startups 100 years ago getting involved in cars, and then people telling them, well, you know, they say this will be a way we get around. But people who look at it say it's a joke, it's smoky and it doesn't work. For the car to really succeed, it needed a lot of infrastructure, services, and architecture around it, what I'm calling an ecosystem. An ecosystem means that in addition to the technology that you're looking at, there are other technologies that serve it, that service it, and they benefit as well. Blockchain is meant to function in an ecosystem. And one reason for all the hype and excitement is that people are imagining these ecosystems, but they are still not built out yet. The third reason why it can be confusing is just training and expertise. This is a commercial from the 1950s, when they were selling gasoline. They actually showed ordinary consumers the inside of an engine to explain to them that octane could affect how the pistons work. We don't do this anymore. Nobody cares about what goes on inside the engine. But what I'm showing you here is that when a technology is new, we need experts and training. And that's why most or many Blockchain for Dummies talks will start right in with how you compute a SHA-256 hash, what is proof of work, what is Byzantine fault tolerance, and highly technical subjects. Now, I am going to cover some technical subjects in this 45-minute talk, but what I'm flagging here is that if you are adopting blockchain for your startup, you will need technical assistance. And one reason why blockchain is so interesting is that you actually need technical assistance from a broader range than we've ever before experienced in computer science. I've been working in computer science for decades, and this is the first time that I'm doing systems and I come in the room. There are people from Deloitte, there are lawyers, there are game mechanics people, there are intense mathematicians and cryptographers. Blockchain is a technology that demands expertise in a broad range of subjects, and you'll see why before I finish today. The fourth and last reason why we're kind of blind, and so you get hype and you can get claims that feel a little bit exaggerated, is the side effects. Going back to the automobile, Henry Ford and all those startups that worked in automobiles never dreamed that they would create housing that looked like this. These houses are only here because of the automobile. Now that's a side effect, okay? Nobody who worked on automobiles and worked on the pistons and taught about octane and had meetings. And by the way, a fascinating aspect about the automobile is Henry Ford succeeded because he built in the battery with the petrol. And nobody else had got that exactly right. Okay, this is a technical detail. But my point is, even Henry Ford didn't know that he would end up making rows of houses with cul-de-sacs, because that's what everybody would want, because the automobile enabled everyone to live here and then to drive out to work. So that's an example of a side effect. So I'm starting with this to say that blockchain cannot be learned in 45 minutes. I've been involved in it for years, and I'm still learning a lot. And you get all this hype and all these strange behaviors like Bitcoin rising to multiple thousands of dollars and then falling, people saying it's a scam, all kinds of crazy behaviors. And I'm telling you here and arguing that the reason why that happens is because Bitcoin is very young, it's just in its babyhood, nobody knows for sure what it will become. It needs an ecosystem to flourish. And when people who are in the blockchain space, as I see some friends here, when they think of the ecosystem, they are profoundly excited, and so it gets kind of hypey, right? But imagine if you were watching that car sputter along, and I would tell you, everyone's going to drive cars. It will change how we live in houses. You would just think he's doing hype. And I'm really here to tell you from my heart that this is not hype. I have been fortunate to be involved in amazing technologies over the decades. And blockchain is truly, truly transformative. Now, it doesn't mean that your startup needs it. And I'm going to try to give you levers and handles to make those decisions. So, let's go back to my story of the House Committee and see how blockchain would change that or affect it in some way. So, remember I started by saying I own an asset. So I own an apartment in this building. Hello? So I own... I own an asset. What does that mean in the real world? It means there's a piece of paper, right? And it means that there's a system of trust and support that will map that piece of paper to me and then enforce, even to the point of violence and jail, that I indeed own that asset, okay? So that's, when we talk about blockchain, we're going to be talking about the ownership of assets. And that's why I showed you in that slide that computer science becomes involved with regulation and law, because it's a profound change in how we deal with ownership of assets. You will own the asset. I'm making a commitment to you. The commitment today is usually put on a piece of paper. It has a signature. There are lawyers and governance and law around that. Again, if you don't honor your commitment, all these officials will become involved. And again, blockchain has solutions for the transfer of ownership. And I'm going to try to show you in detail what this means. Now, I transfer to you. Okay, what does that mean? Well, in this case, I would have the papers, I would give you the papers. You would sign it, I would sign it, I no longer own it, you would sign it, you do own it. And that's exactly what happens in like a Bitcoin transfer. Curate the data. You have to bring the data in to a way that it will work. In our example with the house, it was critical that I brought the data together and did this calculation, and I had to bring to the city official that number, 60%. I'll never forget that moment. I said, he has 60%. Now look at all of the curation and transformation and grinding together of data. I mean, this is made of stone and brick, and it stands in the city. And I come with one number. So we're going to see a lot of that, and that takes a lot of work. And it's one reason why blockchain, I keep saying, is immature. Because people are now profoundly excited by this ability to make asset transfers and ownership work much faster. And this is a good moment to stress something. Bitcoin has utterly crashed. The crypto markets have crashed. And there was a phenomenon called ICOs, which went on for about a year or two, and now they're saying it's over. And you'll hear a lot that it was a scam, and that there were all these bad actors. All of that is true, in my opinion. But look again at the car. When you first had a car, many people ran into trees, they died. There's a famous issue with cars. When the road curves, people would run off the road. So they put signs and they put posts, and still people would run off the road. It wasn't until physicists decided to bank the road that we were safe on the curves. So blockchain reduces friction around asset transfers, and its data is in a specialized format. It reduces friction so much that you had a phenomenon of cryptocurrencies, and their prices could leap and fall by factors of 4 or 10, and it's extraordinary. Of course, we use a digital protocol, and as we all know, that is much faster and has less friction than a paper protocol. If I get you to leave here with anything, it's to ask, will my competitor use blockchain? I think you have a reasonable strategic case to make if you say my competitor is going to use blockchain, and I easily will beat the pants off it for the next 5 years if I stick to whatever I'm doing, a centralized database and paper or whatever. I think you have a good case for that, because blockchain is going to take 5 or 10 years to get its act together. It's very immature and exciting. Broadcast to the network. In this, it meant bring the papers to the judge. Propose a block. They're proposing we are now going to have a judgment on your issue. Motivated by incentives. I told you that the room had 6 people in it. Each of those people was paid by the city to be there. They are motivated to deal with my issue. In blockchain, they are motivated by all sorts of different reasons depending on the blockchain. But the key point is that you, instead of running a data, some people say blockchain is a slow database. That's a simplification which I think is a useful one. You could say blockchain is a kind of slow database. and you'll pretty much understand a lot of what it does. But I feel that you're really missing there that blockchain is an incentivized database. So let's say I ask you to run a database for me. So you'll open up an AWS something, you know, or you just run it on your laptop, and you have a database, right? And then you'll protect the data. With blockchain, the data is protected and incentivized by cryptographic methods and inherent game mechanics. So it kind of runs itself. Then they have to mine the block, they have to do work. And these people had to do work to figure out what was going on. And then they append it to the other blocks, which means they publish the judgment, and in the end, you would have your asset. Let's now take a closer look at ownership and transfer. So if in your business or your value proposition you have assets that are owned and can be transferred, I see one friend here who deals with energy. So energy is created, it's a kind of asset, and it must be transferred. So I know that they're dealing heavily in blockchain. By the way, that's energy, if I may. So let's take a look at why ownership and transfer is changed by blockchain. Okay? So here's one company. It's an enterprise that's, look, you know what, I mentioned energy, so I'll stick to energy. So this is the energy provider, and they have all these electricity generating things, and they keep track in their database system of everything that they have. It's very important. Okay, now they want to do business with some other entity, like they want to make batteries. So this is the battery company. So now as I don't know if you know, but I also worked in the plastic industry. Ketchup Plastic has huge databases of everything they're doing. The minute we would try to work with another company, the integration was a nightmare. Extremely expensive and difficult. Picture like banks and airlines. Pictures a stock exchange and a mining company. They have tremendous computerized systems that they have built over the last 30 years. Connecting them is always very difficult. And we need to connect to do business. We now are shipping something, so we have to do these connections. Costs a lot of money. There's another company getting involved. They're, I don't know, doing a value add, or they're dealing with the shipping company. And the picture never stops here, because there's always a bank involved. They're funding everything. They need to know what's happening over there, and there's always an auditor in the end, because it's government and taxation. And we need that to keep these cities running and keep infrastructure going. I pointed out to you that each of these connections is heavy, slow, and expensive, and just magical. Blockchain gives us the promise that everything will go as smooth and frictionless as you see cryptocurrencies jumping up and down. That is mind-blowing, okay? Mind-blowing. And that's why you see Goldman Sachs involved, energy involved, Citibank involved, Inc. involved. I can go on and on and on. Everyone's playing with it, but I publish my predictions, and my prediction is the banks will withdraw from blockchain because these systems are working for them. They don't need it yet. They don't need the smoky car yet. And that's why there's so much investment money going to blockchain, because they're taking the big bet that somebody's going to get it right, and in 5 or 10 years become the next Google or Uber or whatever. The next part of blockchain I'd like to focus on is the data and the recorded decision. Okay? And again, you're here because you're in TLV Startup Hub. You definitely have data in your startup. And you're definitely recording decisions of some type. If you're running a game, you record who won. If you're running I don't know, whatever. So I'm going to give a little metaphor, if you don't mind. Meat sauce. I love meat sauce. You know, ground beef. And when you put it out this way, all the meat is sitting in one place. And if you want to protect it, you have to close it. Blockchain, on the other hand, is like a burger. You take part of the meat and you clamp it into a block. This is how it does its magic. So you can just picture that it takes some of the meat and it goes like this. This is the block. I have the data in this block. I have networked. So this block will go out and be shared with everybody else, and everything is signed. And I'm going to tell you more about the signature. So there's another way of thinking of why we keep saying block, block, block. Database, the data is all in one place. You have to put firewalls, and you have to have a cybersecurity officer in charge. You have to get cyber insurance. You have to look for penetration attacks. You have to check your software. With blockchain, you have block, block, block. The blocks themselves are unchangeable and immutable. That's why you can send them out through the entire world, and they cannot be affected. How does blockchain achieve that feat? I mean, if data was capable of doing this, why didn't we work with data like this years ago? Why does IBM have firewalls and all of us do? Equifax was just hacked and 135 million records were lost. How does Bitcoin leave out in the open? There's a Bitcoin address, which is a well-known address. I could give it to you right now. If you could discover the key that controls that address, and it's a simple mathematical formula, that you could unleash the $2 billion in that address. Say, and there's the KGB, and there's Chinese hackers. $2 billion is a lot of motivation. No one has yet unlocked that address. How is that? Because it's immutable. And I'd like to now take a technical moment with just third grade math and show you how this works. I'm going to show you now something that we discovered as humankind, mathematicians, about 1,000 years ago. It led to what's called double entry accounting, which is how all corporations flourish today. It's very simple, but those of you who have math phobia, take a deep breath. This is second grade and third grade math, really. It's fascinating, I promise you. So, 1,000 years ago and still today, we add up long lists of numbers. And somebody said, how do I know if the answer is correct? And they thought of an answer. It's very simple. What you do is you add up the numbers in a special, strange way, which is called modular arithmetic. So, 12, 1 plus 2, that's 3. 13, 1 plus 3, that's 4. 729, 7 plus 2 plus 9, well that's 18, but you still have two numbers. So you do 1 plus 8, you get 9. Following? It's very simple. 53 becomes 8, 2 becomes 2, and you get a total. 26. Now let's check this total. 8 plus 1 plus 9 is 18. Which equals 9, and this is 8. There's an error on that column. Did anyone notice that there was an error? Now, this is a beautiful bit of math. It's called casting out nines, because it turns out that what's happening is all the nines are disappearing. See, 12 became 3. And it's a property, it's an advanced property, and you don't need to know why it works, it just works. And I'm being accurate when I say accountants have used this trick for hundreds and hundreds of years to check tallies, because it's easy to do. Easy to check. Hard to do, easy to check. Now there's something else happening here, which is called a one-way function. Number 12 becomes a 3. But if you know 3, you can't get 12. Follow? Right? Number 13 comes a 4. But if you know 4, you don't know that there's a 13 on the other side. Follow? It's quite simple. This is the first hash. Now, it's not a very good hash, because 3 can become 12, but 3 can also become, someone say 31? 21, exactly. So two different numbers here They both become 3.
3, sorry. 111. 3 numbers.
Even 111.
No, just 3. Just 3.
The number 3, thank you. Thank you.
And 1,101.
Exactly, 1,101. So you understand that this function only goes one way. But what you're seeing now is many different numbers could become this. I told you 5 minutes ago that there's a number. It's a number. It's a string of letters. It maps to something over here through a one-way function. It's worth $2 billion. But this one-way function, which is called SHA-256, SHA Secure Hash Algorithm. Hash, why is it called hash? Because in American English, if you take something big and hash it up, it becomes something small. So Bitcoin uses algorithms like that. I'm going to repeat. There's a lot of expertise involved when you deal with blockchain. And as the years go by, this will be wrapped up and you won't have to deal with it. People will it'll just work. But if you start looking at immutability, things are immutable because they have SHA-256, they're using public cryptography, they encrypt, decrypt, have digital signatures, ring signatures, multi-party computation, and zero knowledge. I'd like to spend a minute on that last one because it's just so cool. So zero knowledge means, remember I posed the puzzle to you. If IBM or whatever, or American Airlines or Bank Paulin, all these companies have data and you have to protect it with firewalls. And I'm standing here telling you, they'll give it on a blockchain and they'll put it out there and it'll be a network and everybody can use it. You're asking, how? You can't do that. It just doesn't make sense, right? On some level it does not make sense because the data is private. So the way we get around that is with mathematics, what we call zero knowledge. And I can explain it to you again with a metaphor which is actually quite accurate. So does anyone know, where's Waldo? He's called Efi Pope Israel. And the way this works is a children's game. You get a book, and Waldo's in here somewhere. Who's played it? About half of you. So those who don't know, there's about 10,000 people here, and one of them is Waldo. Now, let's say that I know where Waldo is. And this relates, let's say I'm Bank Paulin, and I know your balance. Okay? I have information that I know, but I don't want to reveal it to the whole world. All I need to reveal to the world is that you can take the mortgage. You can support the payment transfer if you think you're doing. You are a valid customer, things like that. I don't want to reveal everything I know. So, how could I prove to you that I know where Waldo is without telling you where Waldo is? Does anyone know the answer? You know. But did you think of it yourself? Right, neither did I. I've met one person, I've done this quite a bit, one person figured it out. I would love to leave you the puzzle, but I'm going to tell you the answer. It's actually very simple. This is a book. It's like this. It's something, it's a book. Now let's say, did I go the wrong way? Yeah. Oh, no, okay, so there's Waldo. Now, I take a big cardboard.
I think you just need to have coordinates. The location in the picture, but you need to encrypt it with a key or a set of keys so that you can pinpoint where this guy is.
Okay, so this brave person is giving a suggestion, which I'm about to say won't work. So he says, okay, let's do 0 to 1,000 here, and 0 to 100 here, and so now remember I told you in the beginning, we're going to curate the data, right? So Waldo is a drawing, but now we have coordinates. Waldo is at 43, 72. Okay, I have coordinates. Now he knows that if you have numbers, you can encrypt them. So now instead of saying 4372, they say 82961 and no one knows it. No one can read it. But when you show 82961 to this man, he says, how do I know Waldo is there?
You ship the method of decryption through a different channel, not using the same.
So
you tell him price.
Still, you need to prove to him that you know.
You meet with him in private and you give him a way to decrypt the message that you get only to him.
So he'll find out
The
who
next
Waldo
time that you
is.
give this fake coordinates, only
Yeah.
he will know because you gave
But he will know
That's
them.
the one to let him know where it is.
But-
To be able to prove to him that he knows. Not knowing exactly.
Right. So your method would work. His method is,
I know,
I can show one person at a time.
I know.
This is maybe not, I don't know zero knowledge course, and I need to learn it. But this thing is used the last 100 years in one kind of sport, where you have to prove that you visited some spot. They hide a secret number on that spot. That number is checked against the register, which is public. And when you visit that spot, you demonstrate the secret number that was there.
Good.
So you give Waldo some secret number that everybody knows he has, and it is checkable against the register of 1,000 numbers. So nobody knows what is the secret number, but when you have it, you can check it against the 1,000 numbers, which give you a little of hiding, and you can find Waldo's actual number against the register.
In your system, in the end, the number that is found is revealed to somebody. Because you have to show it. Here we will not reveal it to anybody. Watch.
But this is a proof without finding the...
But you're revealing your knowledge in the end. It's a good system for privacy. So like, I only want to talk to you, so I encrypt it, and only me and you have the knowledge, and you don't. Those systems work like that. Even your system would work like that. I go into private, only you and I know, and no one else knows.
What do you want?
So here, well, you'll understand fully what I now tell you. So I take a big piece of cardboard, twice the size of the book. Okay, here's the book, here's the cardboard. I put the book behind the cardboard, I cut out a hole the exact shape of Waldo, and there he is. You see him, so you know that I found him. But because this, you don't know if the book is here, or here, or here, or here, you don't know. So, I have proved to you that I know where Waldo is, and you still don't know. I told you I had 2 plugs, so this is one of them. I'm writing for Block TV. I named the Zero Knowledge Awards after Forrest Gump, because Forrest Gump didn't know anything and succeeded in everything, right? And he bought Apple stock, and if we had bought the stock that he bought, it would be worth $50 million today. So we gave out 5 awards for zero knowledge. Blockchain needs zero knowledge. Zero knowledge, we already have it. It's a very intensive and difficult kind of math. It's extremely technical. It's mind-blowing. And it was just sitting there. I mean, we used it in the Cisco Secure Video to send keys to set-top boxes. Okay. Data to the network. Here, network, take this data. And you cannot publish people's private banking information. You cannot publish people's identities. You cannot publish their birthdays. You can't do that. Going back a bit, some people say, blockchain is a slow database. One reason why it's slow is because they're doing all this math to try to hide the data that's in it. How much time do I have? 7 minutes? So I'm going to go a little faster. It'll be a little bit information overload, okay? But I want to cover a few more topics. One reason why we are so excited by blockchain is because it is a technology that changes how we work with trust. I hope you've been noticing that I've been talking about things that we trust as social. We have social trust. I trust you, I don't know you yet, so I don't trust you. I trust my mother. I trust the bank. And now we have programmable trust. I keep coming back to that. That Bitcoin address is worth $2 billion. And it just sits out in the whole world because nobody can attack it. So the way this works, we used to trust the family and the tribe, but now we're having trouble with that. There's no more extended family. People think they're friends with people on Facebook. Now they're finding that that's a little problematic. Our institutions, banks, and governments, well, their stocks are collapsing again. Trust is low in these things. And now along comes Bitcoin. And I'm saying Bitcoin, and I'm confusing you a little. Blockchain. Along comes blockchain, and it can replace these things with math and physics. So let's tell a quick story about that, and I'm going to go quite fast now. So in the old days, I would give you this, and you give me that. And you know who I am, and I know who you are, and so you know that the exchange works, and that was called barter. That's how we did things. And then came along gold, and I said, well, instead of giving you a hat, and you give me a shirt, I'll give you this little piece of shiny metal. Why would you accept it? You accepted it because you understood that it was hard to get gold, and it was rare, and someone else would accept it from you. And then we worked by trading gold. Soon, at some point, came along paper money. Why bother carrying around gold? It's heavy. Here's a piece of paper. Now, at first, the piece of paper said you can someday go and get the gold if you want to. And then in 1973, President Nixon cut that. No more gold. It's just paper. It's plastic. Okay, and yet we accept it. Why? Because we know that somebody else will accept it, which is an issue of trust. So then came along plastic. Why even bother giving paper? Just run this number, and it'll go to a bank, and I promise that I'll give you paper in the future. And that worked. And billions of dollars go through this system. Why? Because we trust that it will work. And then came electronic transfers. There's not even plastic anymore. You type some numbers in a web browser. This is how things work. And now we have Bitcoin. And the most important point here is Bitcoin is not blockchain. Bitcoin is the first app built on the decentralized asset transfer, cryptography assured, database and networking protocol with built-in incentives. Bitcoin is just the first app. One of the other secrets of how it works is consensus. It's a very complex subject, so I'm not going to go into detail, but you'll hear about proof of work, proof of stake, proof of authority, proof of kernel work, proof of location. The key thing there is it's a little bit like Where's Waldo? Hard to do, but easy to verify. And it goes back to gold. It's hard to get gold, but it's easy to know if you have gold. It's hard to cut a diamond, but it's easy to check if you have a diamond. So what blockchain does is that same trick using math. This is a graphic from an IBM friend that just shows how many industries are looking at blockchain. I hope I have succeeded in showing you that this is not hype. It gets hyped because no one is sure how this will grow. But everyone who looks closely at it just goes, oh my goodness. It's really amazing. So you see it hitting all these different industries today. I'm coming back to the beginning. I told you the story of my house. I hope you understand better the core concepts. That data and math are critical to how the blockchain works. That it involves assets. That you could transfer them, transfer owners. That there are judges and rules. I didn't spend much time talking about that. I'd like to talk a little more about that. And that there are recorded decisions. And then there was the reverse side. So now comes the time for my main plot. So I'm privileged to be a founder of a startup called Platinum. That's our website. We are a proof of location protocol of the blockchain. What we realized in Platinum is that these mechanisms of incentivized work and a network that's distributed over many nodes can finally bring to location a level of security which was not possible before. Currently, location only protects low-value assets in most of everybody's everyday life. But if you want a system that really tracks location, you have to buy a private, siloed, centralized system. And they all use it, shipping companies and trucking and inspection services. In Platinum, and I'm here with my co-founder, Alon Mason, we realized that we can use these incredible abilities to get a secure location, because you can see what he sees, he can see what you see, and still keep it private. And by the way, I encourage you to download our app and start playing with it. I'm going to mention a few more big players. There's a big player called EOS. 2 minutes left. So EOS is the name of a blockchain that also does processing. When you process things in this distributed way, we realize that you're really doing something like happened in that courtroom. You're checking somebody else's work to make a decision. And so they named the processing of blockchain a smart contract. It's a good name. It's not just code running on a computer. It's code that ends up deciding who owns what. And so EOS is an exceptionally beautiful blockchain done by Dan Larimer. The consensus is done at 21 nodes, a very fascinating way of doing it. Ethereum is the granddaddy of smart contract blockchains. Vitalik was the person who thought of it first, and he deserves a lot of credit. Ethereum was built, and remember I told you about side effects. Remember, we made the automobile, and it changed how houses are built. Vitalik made Ethereum. He never thought for 1 minute of ICOs. He made Ethereum, and then somebody said, wow, I can use this to do an ICO. And then suddenly there were thousands and 10,000 ICOs with such low friction. So I'm urging you not to look at the scam side, and some people were even hurt and scared, but think about it. One computer science guy built a new kind of blockchain, and 1 year later, $100 billion moves across it. That's the power of blockchain. This is another one that I'm just almost randomly calling out, but I know a lot about it. It's called Sovereign, and it's where they put identity on the blockchain, and they're trying to solve all those problems because you can't put your name out in the world, and they have zero knowledge. And then this is a big list, again, from Andreessen and Horowitz. Here's my house, and I want to end on a more interesting note. We're 7 billion people today, and it really interests me that when we were 3 billion people or 2 billion people, and we weren't polluting the oceans, because we weren't that many of us, and we didn't have computers in blockchain. It's interesting to me that now when we're 7 billion people, we suddenly discover and invent a way that we can coordinate our actions together without so much friction. I think that that's the real heart of startups and Startup Nation, that we're enabling ourselves to live together. This is a baby elephant, fetus. The elephant in the room is the blockchain. It's growing fast. In some of your work, you might be asked, hey, do blockchain in my startup. So if you're being asked to carry that elephant, I hope I gave you some more tools and more motivation to get up that hill. Thank you very much.
A quick question. Do we have any experts in blockchain here in the public? Do we? Raise your hand.
Not experts, but people who work with it every day. Alon does, my co-founder.
Okay, so I'm just asking because if we got some questions from the public, we can do it with the experts or without them. We allow them. So,
Would you be willing to help answer questions?
Yeah,
you
sure.
guys?
please join us.
Someone put a chair
Okay. Question.
Proof of stake, proof of location. What's the story?
Proof of stake, proof of location. So,
Proof of work, proof of this concept.
okay. For these systems to work, there has to be something that is very difficult to do, but easy to verify. Now, right there, that's enough to be mind-blowing, you know. And I have to tell you, on the list of what's it called? There's a list of 9 prizes that they're going to give $1 million to if they solve them. And one of them on that list is, how is it? Why is it that there are things that are hard to do and easy to verify? It's a fascinating topic. So, the first blockchain, the hard thing to do was to do a one-way function. He gives you, every time a block lands in Bitcoin, I'm going like this because remember the 12 and the 3 over here? So whenever a block comes into the world on Bitcoin, you get a number here. It's a long number, it's a number, and you have to find what matches to it. And it's very hard to do. Basically, you have to do a billion guesses. So that's proof of work. That's what it was named. Proof of work burns a lot of energy. By the way, I'm not convinced it burns too much energy, but it burns a lot of energy. So people started thinking, what else could we do that's more efficient? Now in EOS, they have a voting system, so they use a lot less energy. There's only 21 people who can vote. It's a little bit like Parliament. Proof of stake is a different way of working where you put a certain amount of your own money in so that you're then heavily incentivized not to cheat. So the difficulty is related to how much it was difficult to make such a stake and that you wouldn't risk the stake. Proof of location is the difficulty to go around and be in different locations. It's not so easy. You know, you sleep and you work, and you sleep and you work, and you visit your mother once a month. But if for proof of location, you could be asked to visit a new location. These are all examples of hard to do and easy to verify. Questions? You should be fair, so.
I wanted to ask you a question about trust, particularly institutional trust. You made an analogy of stock market crashes, therefore you have no trust. I'll posit that that's not an accurate analogy because you don't distrust the fact that there's a stock market, you distrust the fact that your asset will maintain its value. Just like you'll have trust that your Bitcoin will maintain its value, which you don't. But when you talk about trust at the institutional level, the trust in the stock market is that I own one share of IBM today, I will still own one share of IBM tomorrow unless somebody hacks into the stock market, which is not a concern, at least not nowadays. Okay? But with Bitcoin, my question revolves around everything surrounding the blockchain, my wallet or the exchange on which I purchase, and those things have been hacked and can be compromised. And I would speculate, and I'd like to hear your opinion, that with time there will grow around the blockchain an ecosystem of trust providers that will guarantee that if somebody steals your credit card in the physical world, or somebody hacks your wallet provider in the blockchain world, they will give you compensation because they're a trust provider. Just like your credit card company will not allow you to be defrauded if somebody steals your plastic. So will we wind up in a situation where the same ecosystem of institutional trust is just surrounding your wallet instead of your plastic?
I think that was very insightful. The answer is you're absolutely right, and the way I like to think about it is, here's wallet, here's cash. If anyone takes this, then they have it. But if I forget my wallet on the table and go to the toilet and come back and it's not there, that's not right. And there are systems to find the person who took it. And currently, if you lose your Bitcoin password, there's no system to help you. You're just out. So I absolutely agree with you. You said it well. Those systems are part of the ecosystem that I kept hinting we need to build. I just have one small objection because I listened very carefully to what you're saying. And the small objection is as follows, because this is critical to understanding what blockchain gives us. I said the stock market crashed and I lost trust in it. And it's funny, you're very sensitive. The fact that the stock market changed its value does not show a change in trust. But the fact that insiders in the stock market and the banks game the system, it does happen all the time. And now Venezuela's currency is just crashing. So just the point I want to really put my finger on is the idea behind the blockchains is that no insider can change how the system is operating. So while you were correct that I can lose my coins and my control of my wallet, and I can get tricked and phished and all of that, the main point is that we can build systems, and that's why in Bitcoin we can say in crypto we trust. Do you want to follow up?